The taxi's tires crunched against the gravel as Abigail Voss stepped out, her marine uniform crisp, her duffel bag heavy with the weight of 20 years' service. The October dusk wrapped her in a chill, the air thick with pine and the faint tang of rain-soaked earth. Her heart pounded, not from combat nerves, but from the hope of home, the old Virginia estate her grandmother swore would always be hers. The wrought iron gate loomed ahead, its spikes glinting under a flickering street lamp. She expected warmth, maybe her brother's crooked smile. Instead, a security camera swiveled, its red eye locking onto her like a sniper's scope. Before she could reach the porch, a sharp voice cut through the silence. Her brother, Theo Voss, phone pressed to his ear. "There's an intruder claiming to be family," he barked. "Send someone now." Abigail froze, her boots rooted to the path. The gate didn't budge. Her home, her anchor, had just declared her a stranger. Her voice cracked as she pressed the intercom. "Theo, it's me. Abby." Silence. Then the front door swung open, and Theo stood there, all sharp suit and sharper eyes, his wife Lena hovering behind him like a shadow. "You don't belong here anymore," he snapped. "You left. We moved on." The words hit harder than any battlefield report. Abigail's grip tightened on her bag. "I just got discharged. I thought I'd see Mom." Lena's laugh was cold. "She doesn't want you here. Neither do we." Abigail's gaze drifted to the oak tree by the garage, its branches still scarred from her childhood climbs. That was her home, her blood in its soil, her memories in its walls. But now, blue lights flashed in the distance, a police cruiser creeping closer. Her family wasn't just shutting her out, they were rewriting her existence. Hey, if this hits you in the gut like it did me, smash that like button, drop a comment about what home means to you, and share this with someone who needs to hear Abigail's story. Don't forget to subscribe. We're just getting started. The officers stepped out, one grizzled, one barely old enough to shave. The older one squinted. "Abigail Voss? Marine Corps, Cyber Ops." She nodded, throat tight. "This is my grandmother's house. I grew up here." Theo folded his arms, smug. "No record of her owning anything. This is ours now, legally." The younger cop shifted, uneasy, as Abigail pulled out her discharge papers. "They meant nothing here." "Ma'am," the older officer said, "you'll need to leave." Her chest burned, not from the medals pinned to her chest, but from the betrayal carved into her soul. She backed away, the gate clanging shut behind her. That night, she slept in her rental car, the estate's silhouette mocking her through the windshield. By morning, a for sale sign stabbed the lawn like a dagger. Desperate for answers, Abigail dragged herself to a diner, her uniform wrinkled, her eyes bloodshot. Her old friend Marla Klein waited there, her lawyer's blazer a stark contrast to Abigail's fatigue. Marla slid a tablet across the table, showing the estate listed under Blackthorn LLC. "Look at this," she said, her voice low. 3 months ago, your name was on the seller's line. That's not your signature." Abigail's pulse spiked. Forged. She'd been erased, her legacy stolen. Marla's eyes darkened. "Theo's wife, Lena, has ties to Blackthorn. And your uncle, Gideon Voss? He's in on it too." Abigail's coffee trembled in her hand. "They're using my home for something dirty, aren't they?" Marla nodded. "And I found a utility spike. Something's running in that basement. No permits filed." As Abigail processed the betrayal, her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Stop digging, soldier. You won't like what's buried." Her blood ran cold. She glanced out the diner's window, catching a glimpse of a man in a hoodie slipping into the alley. He didn't look back, but a folded note was tucked under her wiper when she returned to her car. Her fingers shook as she unfolded it. "If you're really Abigail, meet me at the old mill midnight. Alone." The clock read 11:15 p.m. She had 45 minutes. Her marine instincts screamed trap, but her heart demanded truth. The mill was a shadowed ruin, and whatever waited there could break her, or the case wide open. The old mill's silhouette loomed against the moonless Virginia sky, its rusted beams groaning under the weight of secrets and time. Abigail Voss parked her car a block away, her Marine training kicking in. Move quiet, stay low, trust no one. The note from the diner still burned in her pocket. If you're really Abigail, meet me at the old mill midnight. Alone. Her watch read 11:58 p.m. The air was heavy with damp moss and the faint hum of cicadas, but her pulse drowned it all out. She wasn't just walking into a meeting, she was stepping into a minefield. Her family, brother Theo, his wife Lena, and their uncle Gideon, had stolen her grandmother's estate, forging her name to claim it under Blackthorn LLC. Now they were using it for something darker, something that demanded locked gates and lies. Abigail's boots crunched softly on the gravel as she approached the mill's shadowed entrance, her hand grazing the small knife tucked in her jacket. Whoever left that note knew too much, and she needed to know why. A faint rustle came from the alley. Abigail froze, her breath shallow, scanning the darkness. A figure emerged, tall, weathered, with a limp that spoke of old wounds. "You're Abigail," he said, voice low and gravelly. He was Elias Holt, a former neighbor who'd once fixed a bike as a kid. Now a mechanic with eyes that had seen too much, he leaned closer. "They're saying you're unhinged, a washed-up vet. But I've seen Theo's wife and her goons at that house. Crates in, crates out, always at night." Abigail's jaw tightened. "What kind of crates?" Elias glanced over his shoulder. "Heavy. Locked. No labels. And Gideon's always there, watching like a hawk." Her mind raced. Her uncle Gideon, the family's quiet fixer, had never liked her. But this was betrayal on a new level. Elias handed her a crumpled photo, grainy but clear. Lena unloading a box from a black van, license plate blurred. "They're not just selling your house," he whispered. "They're moving something illegal through it. Arms, maybe. Or worse." Abigail's stomach churned. Her family wasn't just stealing her legacy, they were tainting it with crime. She slipped the photo into her pocket, her voice steady despite the storm inside. "Why tell me now?" Elias's eyes darkened. "Because last week, I saw Gideon burn documents in the backyard. Your name was on them." Before she could press further, headlights flashed in the distance. Elias vanished into the shadows, leaving only a warning. "They're watching you, Abigail. Be careful." Back in her car, Abigail's hands shook as she dialed Marla Klein, her lawyer and oldest friend. "Marla, it's worse than we thought. Theo, Lena, and Gideon, they're not just forging deeds. They're running something big, maybe weapons, through the house." Marla's voice crackled through the phone, sharp with urgency. "I dug deeper into Blackthorn LLC. It's a front tied to offshore accounts and a shady arms dealer flagged in a 2018 FBI report. And get this, Theo's signature is on the incorporation papers." Abigail's heart sank. Her brother, the one who'd once bandaged her scraped knees, was now a criminal mastermind. "There's more," Marla added. "The house's basement is pulling enough power to run a small factory. No permits, no inspections. Whatever they're hiding, it's big." Abigail drove to a motel, the neon sign flickering like her resolve. She spread the photo and Elias's words across the bed, piecing together a puzzle that cut deeper with every connection. Her family hadn't just erased her from the will. They'd used her military credentials to legitimize their scheme, banking on her absence to keep it buried. But she wasn't absent anymore. She opened her laptop, pulling up encrypted files from her cyber ops days. If they were playing dirty, she'd play smarter. Her phone buzzed, a new email from an unknown sender. "You're digging where you shouldn't, Voss. Back off, or we'll bury you deeper than your grandmother's grave." Attached was a photo of her car, taken just hours ago outside the diner. Someone was close, too close. As she stared at the screen, her motel room's lock clicked. No one had a key. Her pulse spiked, her hand reaching for the knife as the door creaked open, revealing nothing but darkness. A folded note slid under the frame. "Check the basement." Midnight tomorrow. You'll see. Her breath caught. Another trap, or the key to blowing this wide open. She had 24 hours to decide, and the clock was ticking louder than ever. The motel room's dim light flickered as Abigail Voss hunched over her laptop, the screen's glow casting shadows across her face. The note from under the door. Check the basement. Midnight tomorrow. You'll see. Lay beside her, its words a taunt and a dare. Her Marine cyber ops training kicked into overdrive. She wasn't just a soldier anymore, she was a hunter, and her family's secrets were the prey. Theo, Lena, and Uncle Gideon had stolen her grandmother's estate, forging her name to mask their crimes under Blackthorn LLC. Elias Holt's warning about unlabeled crates and late-night deliveries pointed to something sinister. Arms deals, maybe worse, hidden in the basement of her childhood home. Abigail's fingers flew across the keyboard, pulling up encrypted tools she hadn't touched since her last deployment. If her family thought they could outsmart her, they were about to learn what 20 years in cyber warfare could do. The clock read 1:07 a.m., and every second felt like a countdown to a trap. She called Marla Klein, her lawyer, voice low to avoid waking the motel's thin walls. Marla, I got another note. It's about the basement. I'm going in, but I need digital backup. Marla's response was sharp, urgent. Abigail, slow down. If they're moving arms, you're walking into a war zone. Let me pull records first. But Abigail was already pinging her old cyber ops contact, Juniper Tate, a hacker who could crack systems faster than most could blink. Juniper's face popped up on a secure video call, her background blurred, voice clipped. Send me what you've got, Voss. I'll tear their digital trail apart. Abigail uploaded Elias's photo and the utility records Marla had flagged, showing the estate's basement drawing power like a covert lab. Juniper whistled. This isn't a home Reno. That's server-grade juice. They're hiding something big. Maybe crypto, maybe weapons logs. Juniper's scripts ran like lightning, pulling metadata from Blackthorn LLC's public filings. Within hours, she unearthed a goldmine, encrypted emails between Lena and an unknown contact, routed through a VPN that leaked an IP tied to Theo's office. One email mentioned inventory secured below, with a timestamp matching a power spike at the estate. Abigail's pulse raced. She was close, too close. She cross-referenced the data with a DoD archive she still had access to, finding a redacted report on Blackthorn. It was flagged in 2019 for suspected arms trafficking, but the case was buried. Someone pulled strings, Juniper muttered. And I bet Gideon's name is on the puppet. Abigail's uncle, always the family's fixer, had the connections to make investigations disappear. Her phone buzzed, a new message from the same unknown sender. You're not as invisible as you think. Attached was a grainy video of her leaving the diner, time-stamped yesterday. Her breath hitched. They were tracking her, maybe even now. She rigged a small webcam to her motel window, syncing it to her laptop for real-time alerts. If they were watching, she'd see them first. Juniper pinged again. Found a digital signature on a Blackthorn transfer. It's Lena's, but the account's linked to a shell in the Caymans. And, Abigail, there's a file with your DoD clearance codes. They're using you to bid on military contracts. The betrayal cut deeper than any knife. Her family wasn't just stealing her home. They were weaponizing her service. Abigail drove to a new safe house, a friend's cabin outside town, her mind spinning. She set up a secure server, backing up every file Juniper sent. The basement was the key, but storming it blind was suicide. She needed eyes inside. She contacted Elias again, texting, "Can you get me blueprints or access?" His reply was instant. Too hot. They doubled security. Cameras everywhere. Her gut twisted. If she went in, she'd be exposed. If she didn't, they'd cover their tracks. As she planned her next move, her webcam pinged. An alert. A black SUV idled outside the cabin, no plates visible. A figure stepped out, dropped something by her mailbox, and vanished. Heart pounding, Abigail retrieved it, a USB drive labeled proof. Plugging it in could be a trap, or the break she needed. Her cursor hovered over the file, the clock ticking toward midnight. The cabin's silence was suffocating, broken only by the faint hum of Abigail Voss's laptop as she stared at the USB drive labeled proof. Her heart thumped like a war drum, her marine instincts screaming caution. The black SUV that dropped it had vanished into the Virginia night, leaving no trace but this ticking time bomb in her hand. Theo, Lena, and Uncle Gideon had forged her name to steal her grandmother's estate, turning it into a hub for illegal arms deals under Blackthorn LLC. Now someone, ally or enemy, had left her this drive, and the clock was edging toward midnight, the hour the anonymous note urged her to check the estate's basement. Plugging in the USB could crash her system or worse, but it might hold the key to unraveling her family's lies. Abigail's fingers hovered, then she slid the drive into a sandboxed laptop, her breath held tight as the screen flickered to life. The USB opened to a single video file, grainy but unmistakable. Theo in the estate's basement, overseeing crates being stacked by two men in black gloves. A timestamp glowed. 3 nights ago. Abigail's blood ran cold as Theo's voice crackled, low and tense. Move it before she gets too close. The camera panned, catching a crate labeled restricted, DOD. Her own military clearance codes were stamped on it. Her family wasn't just stealing her home. They were trafficking military-grade equipment, using her name to dodge scrutiny. The video cut off abruptly, replaced by a text file. You're not safe. They know you're digging. Alley behind the estate. 1 a.m. Abigail's pulse spiked. Another meeting, another risk. But she was too deep to turn back. She called Juniper Tate, her cyber ally, voice barely a whisper. Juniper, I've got a video. Theo's moving crates with my codes. Can you trace the USB's origin? Juniper's keyboard clattered through the secure line. Send it over. I'll rip its metadata apart. Abigail uploaded the file, her eyes darting to the cabin's windows. Her webcam hadn't caught another glimpse of the SUV, but the hairs on her neck stood up. Juniper pinged back. The USB's clean, too clean. Someone wiped its origin, but the video's IP traces to a burner phone near your estate. Whoever sent this is close. Abigail. Maybe inside. Inside. The word hit like a bullet. Was it Elias, the ex-neighbor who'd tipped her off? Or someone else, playing both sides? Abigail strapped on her knife and a hidden recorder, her marine training guiding her every move. She drove to the alley behind the estate, parking in the shadows of a sagging chain-link fence. The air was thick with damp earth and diesel, the estate's backlit eerily quiet. At 1:03 a.m., a figure emerged. Elias, his limp pronounced, eyes scanning the dark. You got the drive, he hissed. Abigail nodded, her hand near her blade. Who sent it? Elias shook his head. Not me. But I saw Lena burn more papers last night. They're spooked. Gideon's got armed guys now. Abigail's mind raced. Her uncle was escalating, turning her childhood home into a fortress. Before Elias could say more, a low rumble broke the silence. Headlights flared at the alley's mouth. A black van, no plates. Elias grabbed her arm. Run. Now. They ducked behind a dumpster as two men stepped out, one with a rifle slung low. Abigail's recorder caught their voices. She's here somewhere. Find her before Gideon does. Her heart pounded. This wasn't just a warning. It was a hunt. She and Elias slipped through a gap in the fence, her mind burning with the video's images. If she could get that footage to Marla, it could blow the case open. But as she reached her car, her phone lit up with a new message. You can't hide, Abigail. We have your service records. One call, and you're a traitor. Attached was a scanned page, her classified psych eval, marked unstable. Someone was building a case to destroy her, and they were one step ahead. The Virginia courthouse loomed under a gray dawn, its marble steps cold as Abigail Voss climbed them, her marine uniform pressed sharp, ribbons gleaming like silent witnesses. Her heart thundered, not from fear, but from the weight of truth she carried in a leather folder. video footage, forged deeds, and IP logs tying her brother Theo, his wife Lena, and Uncle Gideon to an illegal arms operation under Blackthorn LLC. They'd stolen her grandmother's estate, used her military clearance to traffic restricted gear, and now branded her a traitor with a doctored psych eval. Today, in a federal courtroom, Abigail would face them, her evidence a blade to cut through their lies. But as she passed through security, a clerk slipped her a note. "They've hired a new lawyer. Watch your back." Her stomach twisted. The game was shifting, and the trial's outcome hung on a razor's edge. Inside, the courtroom buzzed with tension, the air thick with the scent of polished wood and nervous sweat. Abigail sat beside her lawyer, Marla Klein, whose steady gaze anchored her. Across the aisle, Theo's jaw was tight, Lena's hands fidgeted, and Gideon stared straight ahead, his face a mask of defiance. The federal prosecutor, Clara Holt, stood, her voice cutting through the silence. "Ms. Voss, present your case." Abigail rose, her boots clicking on the floor, and laid out the folder. "My family forged my signature to steal my grandmother's estate, used it to launder money through Blackthorn LLC, and exploited my DoD clearance for illegal arms contracts." Gasps rippled through the gallery as she played the video from the USB, Theo in the basement, crates stamped with her codes. The judge's eyes narrowed, unblinking. Marla followed, presenting Juniper Tate's digital forensics. IP traces to Lena's home network, bank transfers to offshore accounts, and a 2019 FBI report linking Blackthorn to arms trafficking. "This isn't a family dispute," Marla said, her voice steel. "It's conspiracy, fraud, and misuse of federal systems." Theo's lawyer, a slick newcomer named Victor Reese, objected. "The video lacks chain of custody. It could be fabricated." Abigail's pulse spiked. Reese was good, too good. But Juniper's metadata, time-stamped and verified, held firm. Clara Holt countered. "The evidence is admissible. Proceed." Abigail exhaled, but the note from the clerk gnawed at her. Reese's presence meant her family was desperate, pulling strings to bury her again. The prosecution played an audio clip, Gideon's voice, recorded by Abigail's hidden device. "If she keeps digging, cut her out permanently." The courtroom froze. A veteran in the back, his cap worn with pride, shook his head in disgust. Lena's face paled, her fingers clutching Theo's arm. Abigail leaned into the microphone. "They didn't just steal my home. They used my service to commit crimes, then called me unstable to silence me." Reese tried to spin it, claiming Abigail's absence justified their actions. "She abandoned her family," he said. Abigail's voice was calm but lethal. "I served my country for 20 years. They abandoned me." As the day wore on, Clara presented a bombshell, a contract bid submitted by Blackthorn, signed with Abigail's clearance codes, dated after her discharge. Theo's eyes darted to Gideon, who didn't flinch. The judge called a recess, but not before issuing a warning. Any attempt to intimidate a witness will be prosecuted. Abigail stepped into the hallway, Marla at her side, when her phone buzzed. An anonymous text. "You think this ends in court? Check your car." Her blood ran cold. She found a tracker taped under her bumper, blinking red like a heartbeat. Someone wasn't just watching, they were ready to strike. As she pocketed the device, a shadow moved across the lot, a man in a black coat, gone before she could follow. The trial was her battlefield now, but the war was far from over. The courthouse hallway felt like a tunnel, its fluorescent lights buzzing as Abigail Voss clutched the tracker she'd found under her car's bumper, its red light now dead in her palm. The federal trial against her brother Theo, his wife Lena, and Uncle Gideon had just recessed. Her evidence, forged deeds, illicit bank transfers, and a damning video, tightening the noose around their Blackthorn LLC arms scheme. They'd stolen her grandmother's estate, weaponized her Marine clearance, and branded her unstable, but the courtroom was shifting in her favor. Yet the anonymous text, "You think this ends in court?" echoed in her mind, a reminder that her family's desperation was a live wire. As she stepped outside, the Virginia dusk was heavy with the scent of wet asphalt and distant thunder. Her lawyer, Marla Klein, scanned the lot, her voice low. Abigail, they're cornered. That's when people get reckless. Abigail nodded, her marine instincts on high alert, but her heart snagged on a figure under a bare oak tree. Her mother, Ruth Voss, eyes red, hands wringing a scarf like a lifeline. Ruth hadn't spoken to Abigail in years, her silence a wound deeper than Theo's betrayal. Now she stood there, her grey hair catching the fading light, her face a map of regret. Abigail approached, her boots deliberate on the pavement, unsure if she wanted answers or closure. "Mom," she said, voice softer than she meant. Ruth's lips trembled. "Abigail, I didn't know it would come to this." Her words were fragile, like glass about to shatter. "If I'd stood up to them, maybe you wouldn't be fighting alone." Abigail's chest tightened. She'd faced war zones, cracked encrypted systems, but her mother's half-apology felt like a grenade with the pin half pulled. "Why didn't you?" Abigail asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Ruth looked away, toward the courthouse where Theo and Gideon were plotting their defense. "I was afraid of losing them, of losing everything." Abigail wanted to scream, to demand why her mother chose Theo's lies over her truth, but Ruth's eyes held something new, guilt, raw and unfiltered. "I saw the will," Ruth whispered. "Your grandmother's. She wanted you to have the house. I let Gideon convince me it was better this way." Abigail's breath caught. Her mother knew. She'd known all along and stayed silent. The confession was a spark in a powder keg, but before Abigail could respond, Ruth pressed a folded paper into her hand. "This was in my attic. It's from her." Abigail unfolded it, a letter from her grandmother, dated a year before her death, naming Abigail as the estate's sole heir, notarized and untouched. "Why now?" Abigail asked, her voice cracking. Ruth's eyes welled. "Because you're my daughter, and I failed you." The moment hung heavy, a fragile thread between them. Abigail wanted to bridge it, to find the mother who'd once braided her hair, but the weight of years, silence, absence, betrayal, held her back. Marla's hand grazed her shoulder. "We need to get this to the prosecutor. It's another nail in their coffin." Abigail nodded, pocketing the letter, but her eyes lingered on Ruth, who turned away, disappearing into the crowd. The ache in Abigail's chest wasn't anger. It was the ghost of a family she'd never reclaim. Back at her safe house, she scanned the letter into her encrypted drive, sending it to Juniper Tate. "Verify this," she texted. Juniper's reply was instant, notarized by a retired clerk. "It's legit." They buried it deep. As Abigail prepared for the next court date, her phone buzzed again, an unknown number. "You're stirring a hornet's nest, Voss. That letter won't save you." Attached was a photo of her mother's house, taken that night, with a single light burning in the attic. Her pulse raced. They were targeting Ruth now, leveraging Abigail's one weak spot. She grabbed her keys, ready to drive to her mother's, when her laptop pinged, a live feed from her safehouse's hidden camera. A shadow moved outside, circling her car. Someone was closing in, and the letter in her pocket felt like both a shield and a target. The Virginia sky was a bruised purple, the air sharp with the promise of rain as Abigail Voss stood outside her safe house, clutching her grandmother's letter, proof that her family's theft of the estate was a deliberate lie. The courthouse battle loomed, with Theo, Lena, and Uncle Gideon facing federal charges for forging her name, laundering money through Blackthorn LLC, and trafficking arms using her marine clearance. The anonymous threats, texts, trackers, shadows circling her car, hadn't stopped her, but the photo of her mother's house, its attic light burning, gnawed at her. Her mother Ruth's confession, raw with regret, had cracked something open in Abigail, but the fight wasn't over. Tonight, she wasn't chasing evidence. She was chasing her legacy. Her phone vibrated with Juniper Tate's message. "Letters verified. Notaries clean. It's admissible." Abigail exhaled, but the weight of her mother's words, "I failed you," hung like smoke. She needed a moment to feel whole again, and she knew exactly where to find it. She drove to the National Defense Archives, a stone building tucked in Quantico's quiet corner, its halls lined with tributes to service. Abigail's boots echoed on the marble floor as she approached the wall of dedication, a slab of black granite etched with names of those who'd shaped the nation's security. She'd walked past it as a young recruit, whispering promises to make her mark. Now her heart stuttered as she saw it. Major Abigail Voss, USMC Cyber Ops, 2003 to 2023. Valor. Resilience. Truth. The words glowed under the soft lights, her name carved not by family, but by her own deeds. She traced the letters, her fingers trembling, not with grief, but with a fierce, quiet pride. This was her inheritance, not a house, but a legacy no one could steal. The moment was hers, a beacon in the storm of betrayal. A guard, an older woman with a marine pin on her lapel, nodded from across the room. "You earned that, Major," she said, her voice warm but firm. Abigail met her gaze, a silent understanding passing between them. "Thank you," she murmured, her voice catching. The guard's nod was enough. Veterans didn't need words to know the cost of honor. Abigail's mind flashed to the courtroom, where her evidence had cornered Theo's smug denials, Lena's trembling hands, and Gideon's cold stare. The wall wasn't just a monument. It was proof she'd outlasted their lies. But as she stood there, her phone buzzed, a voicemail from Marla Klein. "Abigail, the prosecutor's moving the trial up. They think Gideon's planning to flee. We need you tomorrow." The urgency snapped her back. She stepped outside, the night air biting her cheeks. Her car's headlights caught a glint, another note wedged under her wiper. Her pulse spiked as she unfolded it. "You think a wall makes you untouchable? We know where you sleep." Her eyes darted to the shadows, but the lot was empty. She called Juniper. "They're escalating," she said, voice steady despite the chill creeping up her spine. Juniper's reply was sharp. "I traced the last text. It's from a burner, but the signal pinged near Gideon's office. He's panicking." Abigail pocketed the note, her resolve hardening. The wall had reminded her who she was, and no threat could erase that. As she drove back, the estate's silhouette flickered in her mind, not as a home, but as a battlefield. She pulled up the letters scan on her phone, her grandmother's words a quiet fire. "Abigail, this house is yours. Keep it safe." She would, not by reclaiming brick and mortar, but by burning down the lies built on it. Her laptop pinged, a new file from Juniper, a bank transfer from Blackthorn to a Cayman account, dated yesterday. They were moving money, fast. Abigail's jaw clenched. The trial was tomorrow, and Gideon's flight risk meant the clock was ticking. As she parked, a black sedan idled across the street, its engine a low growl. No plates, no movement, just watching. She gripped her knife, ready for whatever came next. The Virginia dawn broke cold and clear, the sun slicing through the fog as Abigail Voss stood outside the federal courthouse in Alexandria, her marine uniform swapped for a muted blazer that felt like armor of a different kind. The wall of dedication's granite had anchored her last night, her name etched there. Major Abigail Voss, USMC Cyber Ops, a testament to her unyielding truth. Now, she faced the final reckoning. Her brother Theo, his wife Lena, and Uncle Gideon sat across the courtroom, their empire of lies, forged deeds, laundered money through Blackthorn LLC, and arms trafficking using her clearance, crumbling under the weight of her evidence. The anonymous threats, the tracker on her car, the note warning "We know where you sleep," none had broken her. Abigail wasn't here for vengeance. She was here for clarity, a quiet warrior whose truth would outlast their betrayal. The courtroom's hush was electric, every seat filled with veterans, reporters, and strangers drawn to a story of resilience that refused to be silenced. Clara Holt, the prosecutor, called Abigail to the stand. Her voice was steady as she recounted the conspiracy. "They stole my grandmother's estate, used my name to traffic restricted arms, and called me a traitor to cover their crimes." The gallery murmured as she presented the final piece, a notarized letter from her grandmother, naming her the rightful heir, verified by Juniper Tate's forensics. Theo's face was stone, Lena's hands shook, and Gideon's eyes darted to the exit, his flight risk palpable. Marla Klein, her lawyer, laid out the digital trail. IP logs, bank transfers, and a video of Theo in the basement, moving crates stamped with Abigail's codes. "This is fraud, conspiracy, and federal theft," Marla said, her voice cutting through the room like a blade. The judge's gaze was unyielding, the gavel waiting. The defense faltered. Theo's lawyer, Victor Reese, tried to discredit the video, but Juniper's metadata held firm, time-stamped and untampered. Lena's attorney claimed she was coerced, but a bank record, $400,000 wired to her personal account, silenced the excuse. Gideon, stone-faced, offered no defense, his silence damning. Clara played the audio of his voice, cut her out permanently. A veteran in the back, his medals gleaming, clenched his fist. Abigail leaned into the microphone. "They didn't just betray me. They betrayed every soldier who serves with honor." The room exhaled, a collective weight shifting. The judge's voice was final. Theodora Voss, 5 years. Lena Voss, 7 years. Gideon Voss, 9 years, no parole. All assets frozen. The gavel fell, a sound sharper than gunfire. Abigail stepped into the hallway, Marla at her side, ignoring the press's shouts. Her mother, Ruth, stood by the exit, eyes red, silent as ever. Abigail met her gaze, but the words from weeks ago, "I failed you," hung between them, unresolved. She walked past, her heart heavy but unbowed. Outside, a crowd of veterans waited, one offering a salute. "You're not forgotten, Major," he said. Abigail nodded, her throat tight. She didn't hate her family, she carried clarity, a truth that burned brighter than their lies. As she reached her car, a final text buzzed, "You won't outrun us." But it didn't matter. She'd faced their worst and stood tall. Her victory wasn't the house. It was her name, her honor, her story. Abigail Voss drove away from the courthouse, the Virginia skyline fading into a soft dusk. The estate, once her grandmother's gift, was no longer home, just a shell tainted by greed. But the wall of dedication, her name carved in granite, held her truth. Major Abigail Voss, valor, resilience, truth. She pulled over by a quiet riverbank, the water's ripple catching the last light. For the first time in months, she exhaled fully, the weight of betrayal lifting. Her family had tried to erase her, but she'd rewritten their story with evidence and courage. The veteran salutes, Marla's steady hand, Juniper's late-night hacks. They were her real family, bound by loyalty, not blood. Ruth's red eyes haunted her, but forgiveness wasn't hers to give yet. Maybe one day. For now, Abigail carried her honor, a beacon stronger than any house. She smiled faintly, the river reflecting her calm. This wasn't the end, it was her beginning, a life reclaimed on her terms. If Abigail's story hit you like it did me, drop a like, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and comment below. Did her fight inspire you, or would you have ended it differently? Subscribe and hit the bell for more stories of courage that don't back down. Let's keep the truth alive together.